Thank you so much for watching A Feral World. I'm here with writer-director David Liban, who made this film. As he said in the intro, this film he shot over the course of 4 years. So I'd love to ask you, tell me about that process. What was it like making a film and stopping and picking it back up and stopping and picking it back up? When did you know you were done?
Well, we made the first film, the first segment, and at the time we thought it was a standalone, and we had more story to tell, and I had a commitment from the actors to keep going forward, and my crew really wanted to keep going as well. So it was one of those things. After we finished the first one, I wrote the second part, and then I knew where I was going, so I sort of wrote myself into that final conclusion of where we were going. But it's kind of complicated because it's scary doing this, because at any given point, it could have just failed. I could have lost an actor, a location, and I could have stroked out. Anything could have happened, and then we wouldn't have finished the film. And so one of the things that also really sort of resonated with me is that we kind of did this with my son. My son is the lead actor, and so I noticed that he was a really good actor, and so it started out as an opportunity for me to make a movie with a really good actor who happened to live in my house. So I knew where he lived. I knew he was reliable. And I thought it'd be kind of interesting to make a project with my son so that, we would both build our experiences and also do this thing together. So, I'm glad the film turned out well. I'm really proud of it, but I'm also really proud of the fact that I got to work with my son on it. So.
Yeah, that is incredible. I knew that because you had the original Feral at the film festival a number of years ago. What I didn't realize up until now was, so you had seen that as just a standalone. That was just a short to stand alone and be done. At what point was it, when the film was out there playing? What point did you realize that there was more story to tell and that you could use it as part one of a bigger story?
Well, I wanted to keep making movies, and I really felt like we had a really good thing going. And it was just interesting to me to see how we can keep going with it, because we left little clues in the first one that I didn't really realize at the time that these were good things to build upon, as far as the missing daughter and where we're going and where the dog come from and all that kind of stuff. So it was a way to use these tools to kind of build forward, like him having braces in the apocalypse. Like, what would you do? Like, all that stuff was content that I could have built upon. So it was pretty soon after the film festival run of the first one that I talked about it with my crew about keeping it going, and it was everyone was on board right away, But as the producer, it was sort of like, well, let me know when you're ready to go. We'll talk then. So it sits on your own shoulders when you're an independent producer. No one is waiting for the movie, so it's kind of up to me to make the thing happen.
Right. Now, you're a movie maker, you're a filmmaker. Had you ever thought about this as episodic? Did you think about it as releasing it in chunks or doing 3 shorts? And then, how did you imagine this? Are there other ways you imagined, releasing this content to us?
Well, that's a good question, because, when I finished the movie, I had these 4 distinct segments, and then the second part was like 40 minutes long. So I thought I could find a good spot in between there and make it into 5 segments. All along we were planning on doing a feature film, but I got some advice from some people that if I didn't find a distributor, then I could potentially release it as like 20-minute segments and do like a web series kind of thing. There's a show on Netflix called Black Summer, which is a great little zombie show. And each one of those episodes are like 20 minutes, half hour. So I thought that, well, they did that there. I could possibly go that way as well. But, the truth of it is it was designed as a feature film. So I kind of stuck with my original plan when it came down to it. And we were fortunate to get a distributor interested. So we didn't have to kind of DIY it, which is what my plan was all along.
You talk about being, a professor. What is the difference? What do you feel as, someone who teaches film and someone who makes film? What are the differences between what you might teach and what you discover on set? What are the kind of things that might have happened on set that you'd be like, oh man, if my students were around, they would have said to me, you told me not to do X, Y, Z. What is it like being both a teacher and a creative filmmaker at the same time?
I mean, it's sort of one feeds the other, you know. So a lot of the people on our crew were actually students, and so they were working with me, and they were, you know, watching what I was doing, and they made great suggestions. And so it was, excuse me, but it was really, you know, a fortuitous sort of relationship. We really helped one another out. You know, there are things that were, you know, you try to do things the right way all the time, and then, you know, chaos happens and you run out of time, or it starts raining, and then all the stuff you teach just goes out the window because you got to go. You know, I got to make this shot, otherwise we don't have a movie. And so it was that kind of thing. But for the most part, we practice what we preach. For the most part, we try to show people what you should be doing and how to do it. You know, one of the things about film school that a lot of people complain about is like, you know, I never learned this in film school. Well, that's because it's film school. It isn't, you know, reality. And we do our best to simulate reality and give students opportunities to do the work. But when push comes to shove, it is a school environment where you should be practicing your skills. But we do try to, you know, give them as many opportunities as possible to make mistakes and improve upon those mistakes.
Were other parts of your production open for students to see, participate in any of the pre-production, any of that early work? I mean, did they see the short before they might have worked on your set for the feature? I mean, what other parts of the film were sort of opened to your students to be able to sort of learn from?
You know, I have to be honest, I kind of handpicked the students I wanted to work with, you know, because not every student is as committed as other students. So I sort of, you know, would notice when one of the things that I notice when I'm in a classroom is if I'm doing a demonstration and I got a camera here and I move the camera and there's all these cables on the floor, there's one student who watches me struggle moving the camera from here to there. And then there's the other kid who notices that I'm struggling and then helps me with those cables. I want that kid on my set. But it wasn't like an open door that people just come. So we sort of had our specific people that we worked with. My colleague, Jessica McGaw, who is also a professor, she was my DP. And so we would talk about, what about this kid? And she was like, no. Or what about that kid? Yeah, that's a great kid. So we would basically kind of handpick those students. And, you know, it's not reasonable to get, you know, 100 people on the set. So we had to kind of be really judicious about who could be there.
Right. I want to ask you a bit about the genre. You know, this sort of lives in that sort of sci-fi dystopian sort of genre. Is that somewhere where you like to write? Is that where a lot of your sort of stories come from? Or was that just specifically born of this project?
I love that genre. Like, I'm a big fan. I've been a big fan of this genre since I was a little kid. I remember as a child seeing the Charlton Heston film Omega Man, and there's like a couple episodes in was one particular episode in the Twilight Zone where somebody is left after the world has been destroyed. I love the Road Warrior, the George Miller movies. So that's the fiction that I am very interested in. I like The Walking Dead, and that's a genre that I just am very attracted to. Book of Eli is one of my favorite movies, and The Road is one of my favorite books, you know, and so it's just the genre that I love. And so I wanted to give a stab at it. And also there's a video game called Fallout, which was a very inspiring for me as well, as far as living in that realm.
Yeah. So this film has taken over a big chunk of your life.
Yes.
You know, 4 years of shooting, post, all the prep. So now that this film is out there into the world, what's next? What do you see on the horizon?
You know, there are funny parts in this movie, but it's not a funny movie. And so I'm envious when I see a movie and people are laughing. And so I've decided my next film is going to be a comedy. It's going to be a Black comedy. And so I've actually already written a script. It doesn't take place in the apocalypse. It takes place in modern America, and it's called Publish or Perish. And so I'm trying to develop that right now. The script is written, and I've got some conversations going on with a couple of studios, but you know, until we're shooting, it's all just pretend, you know.
It's all just a bunch of maybes until the camera's rolling. Well,
Yeah.
David, thank you so much. Thank you for the film. It's a great film. We love having it as part of the package, the Color Spotlight package, but also thank you for being here with us. You at home, you audience watching this, you can vote for this film. This film is eligible for the People's Choice Award for the best of the Color Spotlight section. So I hope that you're finding that vote button right now and going ahead and voting on this film, A Feral World by David Liban. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Neil.